The date is November 24th, 1971, and you're a flight attendant on board Northwest Airlines Flight 305. A strange man in the back of the plane beckons you over and slips you a note. Thinking it's just a lonely man giving you his number, you begin to walk away, until the man leans forward and subtly remarks,
"Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb."
That man was D.B. Cooper, and this is the story of the D.B. Cooper hijacking. Flight 305 begins as any other routine flight would, with passengers loading onto the plane and taking their seats, some even ordering food and drink from the flight attendants. A middle-aged man sitting in E-18, dressed in a suit, tie, black raincoat, and sunglasses, happens to order a Sprite and bourbon. Northwest Airlines Flight 305 and its 36 passengers and 6 crew members take off from Portland en route to Seattle. The 6 crew members were Captain William A. Scott, First Officer Bill J. Rataska, Flight Engineer Harold E. Anderson, and Flight Attendants Alice Hancock, Tina Mucklow, and Florence Schaffner. A few minutes after liftoff, that same man from earlier who ordered a bourbon beckons Flight Attendant Florence Schaffner over. He hands her a note, and thinking he's just a typical lonely businessman, she slips it in her purse and begins to walk away. But the man leans forward and calmly whispers,
"Miss, you'd better read that. I have a bomb."
The note restates what the man just said, reading, "Miss, I have a bomb in my briefcase and want you to sit by me." Schaffner obliges, and she sits next to the man, and he opens his briefcase to show off his 4 sticks of dynamite. The man then tells Schaffner his name, which is Dan Cooper, and instructs her to write his demands down and inform the cockpit. Cooper requests $200,000 in a knapsack by 5 p.m. He wants 2 front parachutes, 2 back parachutes. He wants the money in negotiable American currency. That was a message relayed to Northwest Flight Operations in Minnesota by Captain Scott. Interestingly enough, the $200,000 was requested in only $20 bills. That's 20 pounds of cash. Keep note of that. It's important. Flight 305 circled Puget Sound for another 2 hours in order to give the FBI and Seattle police sufficient time to acquire the money and parachutes demanded by Cooper. At 5:24 p.m., Cooper was notified that his demands were met, and only 22 minutes later, Flight 305 touched down at Seattle-Tacoma Airport. Northwest Orient Seattle Operations Manager Al Lee delivered the parachutes and money dressed in civilian clothes to avoid confusion. Flight Attendant Mucklow exited the aircraft, retrieved the ransom, and handed it to Cooper in the last row. Surprisingly, Cooper then released the passengers, jokingly offering Mucklow some money, which he declined. With the passengers gone, only Cooper and 6 crew members remained on board. Mucklow made 3 trips outside to retrieve the parachutes, while Schaffner retrieved her purse from a compartment behind Cooper. Hancock and Schaffner both asked Cooper if they could leave, and he agreed. Mucklow brought Cooper the final parachute and instructions, which he declined. Cooper had also demanded that the plane be refueled. However, there were refueling delays, which required 3 trucks. After a long 2 hours of anticipation, Flight 305 took off again at 7:40 p.m. Because of the delays in refueling, the crew informed Cooper that a second refueling stop would be necessary, and they agreed on Reno Tahoe International Airport. Before leaving, Mucklow begged Cooper to take the bomb, to which he said he would either disarm it or take it with him. At 8 p.m., a warning light indicated that the aft staircase had been deployed. Cooper left a one-word reply, and that was no. At 11 p.m., Mucklow informed Cooper that they were approaching Reno, but there was no reply. 2 minutes later, Flight 305 landed at Reno Tahoe International Airport with the aft staircase still deployed. Law enforcement established a perimeter around the aircraft, and Captain Scott confirmed Cooper was no longer aboard. Also, an FBI bomb squad declared the cabin safe after a 30-minute search. So, Cooper is gone. And the flight was thousands of feet in the air. So, where could he possibly have gone? Well, he jumped out. Yeah. That's right. He jumped out of the plane with a 20-pound bag of money tied around his waist. There's a lot of mystery and uncertainty surrounding this case, and I'm just going to get the most boring theory out of the way first, and that is that he died. Cooper was thought to have a lack of extensive skydiving experience and also inadequate equipment and preparation for the jump. He also jumped into 200-mile-per-hour winds in the pitch black of night in 15-degree weather. The FBI also found other evidence, which also didn't go anywhere. 66 latent fingerprints were recovered aboard the airliner. So was Cooper's black clip-on tie and tie clip. They also recovered a hair sample, which was destroyed in the attempts to build Cooper's DNA profile. They also found saliva from cigarette butts, but those were also destroyed in custody. Years later, in 1980, an 8-year-old found 3 packets of the ransom cash totaling around $5,800 on the Columbia River's Tina Bar. The bills were disintegrated but still bundled, and it was suggested that the bills entered the water months after the hijacking due to diatoms found, which only bloom in the spring. Side note, I thought this was pretty funny, but the FBI recreated Cooper's jump with a 200-pound sled pushed out of the same aircraft at the same time, and they recorded where it dropped. That provided them with drop zone estimates, which placed Cooper in an area near Mount St. Helens, but they didn't find anything, so that went nowhere. Now, let's get into the interesting stuff. The suspects. Over the course of this case, there was upwards of 1,000 suspects, and obviously we don't have time to go through them all. The first suspect we have is Theodore Burdett Braden Jr. He was a Special Forces commando during the Vietnam War and a master skydiver and convicted felon. He completed 911 skydiving jumps and was a military skydiving instructor. After the military, he worked as a truck driver for the Consolidated Freightways near suspected D.B. Cooper drop zone. He was investigated by the FBI in the early 70s for a $250,000 trucking scam, but he was not charged. Subsequently, he was indicted in 1980 for transporting stolen goods, and his conviction status was... He was arrested in 1982 for driving a stolen vehicle and eventually served time in federal prison. He's suspected by many in the Special Forces community to be Cooper. He had knowledge and experience from jumping from a 727, and his physical description partially matched Cooper's. Military records listed Braden at 5'8". He had short dark hair, medium athletic build, and he was 43 at the time of the hijacking. D.B. Cooper, on the other hand, was described as a 5'10 to 5'11 feet tall man with dark hair, a medium athletic build, and described as in his mid-40s. My favorite person of interest is Richard McCoy Jr. McCoy was an Army veteran who served 2 tours of duty in Vietnam, first as a demolition expert and later with the Green Berets as helicopter. After his military service, he became an avid recreational skydiver. On April 7, 1972, McCoy boarded United Airlines Flight 855, which is also a Boeing 727 with aft stairs, in Denver, Colorado, brandished what was later to be a paperweight resembling a hand grenade and an unloaded handgun. He demanded 4 parachutes and $500,000. After the delivery of the money and the parachutes at San Francisco International Airport, McCoy ordered the aircraft back into the sky and bailed out over Provo, Utah, leaving behind his handwritten hijacking instructions and his fingerprints on a magazine he had been reading. He was arrested 2 days later with the ransom cash in his possession and received a 45-year sentence. 2 years later, he escaped from Lewisburg Federal Penitentiary with several accomplices by crashing a garbage truck through the main gate. He was tracked down 3 months later, where he got into a shootout with the FBI and was killed. Parole officer Bernie Rhodes and former FBI agent Russell Calamé asserted that they had identified McCoy as Cooper. They cited obvious similarities in the 2 hijackings, claims by McCoy's family that the tie and the mother-of-pearl clip left on the plane belonged to McCoy, and McCoy's own refusal to admit or deny that he was Cooper. Additionally, another FBI agent who had killed McCoy stated that, "When I shot Richard McCoy, I shot D.B. Cooper at the same time." However, McCoy isn't even regarded as a suspect in the Cooper case, so I guess we'll never know.